What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with Nvidia, Tesla, SPY, the QQQ, and many tickers out there. I'm going to break down what economic data is coming out for tomorrow that could affect the markets. I'm going to be talking about how Nvidia is looking right now and once again, how it could affect the markets. But before I do anything like this, let me just mention three things real quick. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And finally, guys, I just wanted to mention that tonight I'm going to be going to an airport very, very late at night, traveling to basically pick someone up. It's going to be someone in my family. And in doing so, I might not be home until 1 or 2 in the morning. And then the stock market's going to open at 6:30 a.m. for me. So I might not be able to give you guys a pre-market update video tomorrow, but I will be back by the afternoon for sure. And things will go back to normal after that. So I just wanted to inform you guys about that. There's a long weekend coming up as well. Everything will go back to normal after that, but just know that I might not be able to record a video tomorrow morning during the pre-market. Anyways, I'm recording this video very late, which is why I'm going to try to be kind of fast with this. I want to try to finish this as fast as possible because I was waiting for Nvidia's earnings reports to finish, their earnings call, and etc. And it ended up just finishing, and Nvidia has been sinking since. So why is Nvidia sinking? Well, there are many reasons why. One thing worth noting is that when you look at the technicals, it's been pumping and pumping and pumping for almost all of November, right? Almost all of November has been pumping like crazy. We saw this thing drop just under $400 just at the very end of October. And since then, it's been uptrending very hard. So when it came to earnings, Nvidia was pumping, anticipating some very strong earnings. The market already like priced this in, and when earnings came out, they were strong. Nvidia did very well. However, I just want to note that this is what many people are pretty much looking at. A lot of people have been looking at Nvidia as a company that tends to beat earnings all the time. And because it priced all of this in, there wasn't really anything else for it to really pump extremely hard over. I also want to note that because so many investors and institutions were expecting this massive, massive move, retail as well, Nvidia is not really making a massive move. Instead, it's just very flat. It is somewhat red, but looking at the technicals, it looks very bearish. And I think the odds favor a lot more downside coming very soon. And I think that Nvidia will eventually lead to the market selling off for maybe a week or two. And I think that the market may see a pullback and Nvidia is going to lead the way down. So what happened with earnings? How are earnings looking? They beat on EPS. They beat on revenue. Nice beats left and right. Very good for Nvidia. Revenue was up 206% year over year, which is quite good for them. Net income reached $9.24 billion. And that's once again incredible for them. So their earnings were not bad whatsoever. They were talking a lot about their GPU development and other things like that. And that's once again great news for them. So with all of that was great news for them. However, when it came to guidance, I just want to note that revenue for their Q4 guidance is supposed to be at $20 billion. That's a $2.2 billion beat, which is great news. Revenue is up for the quarter ending in October. And gross margins are not bad whatsoever at 74%. That's up quarter over quarter. Everything seems quite good, in my opinion. This was a very strong report from them. But the thing I just wanted to remind you all about is even though it was strong, it wasn't like Nvidia basically blowing every single investor away because in essence, investors, the market was expecting this. And on top of this, the market already like priced a lot of this in. So with that happening, especially when stocks start pumping very hard approaching earnings, sometimes you want to be very careful if a lot of the announcements are priced in. And that's why earnings could be risky because Nvidia is still continuing to sell off. It's down 1.5%. I don't think it's going to crash immediately. I think it's going to have a slow grind down, back down to that 470 area. That's what I'm anticipating for Nvidia. I think that this is going to lead the market down as we're seeing SPY dropping in the after hours. So is the QQQ, so is the Nasdaq, and etc. So that's very important. When it comes to data affecting the markets, I just want to remind you all, tomorrow, an hour before market open, we have initial jobless claims. We want this to be between 225 and 226,000. And on top of that, we also have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Besides that, the last thing would be the bill auction, which could cause some volatility at 11:30. Usually it's not that bad. And that's pretty much it. Tomorrow may be a very low volume day. We might not see anything that crazy. I think there could be some downside tomorrow specifically, just a little bit of downside with some choppy price action. And I say that because tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, the last trading day before Thanksgiving, and the market's going to be closed on Thanksgiving Thursday. So typically, right before a weekend, right before a holiday, the market could sell off a bit or just be kind of choppy. And I think we might see that for tomorrow. But then we may see even more selling or even more volatility by Friday, if not by going into next week. So we'll be watching this very carefully. With that being said, let's just quickly go over some charts. I want to be kind of fast right now since I'm recording this very late. Nvidia, in my opinion, there's going to be a slow grind down. We have like, first off, you could argue there's like a head and shoulders right here, which is going to bring it down towards like 482. But on top of that, I just want to call out that from a technical standpoint, and I warned you guys about this earlier, we had a triple, if not a quadruple bearish divergence on the charts. You guys could see that the RSI has been declining as the price was going up. And on top of that, Nvidia was due for some downside after like pumping so hard. I believe that the daily time frame is showing that this thing might be testing for 70 over the next couple of weeks, within maybe 2 weeks or so. And I think that there's going to be some downside coming. So I think Nvidia is going to be making its way down to these lower levels. Don't forget to be watching these support zones right here. Let me just bring these back for you. We're going to be watching 490 as a key level. That's very close to where we are right now. If that fails us, we have all these different levels to watch for, like 488. We have 485 coming next and 482. There's a risk of that happening. That's going to be our 50 EMA test as well. There's a risk for downside for Nvidia. I just wanted to call that out. Now, as far as Tesla goes, Tesla has been looking bullish overall on a technical standpoint, but even though this is like bullish overall, that does not mean we can't see a slight sell-off thanks to Nvidia. So we're going to be watching 240. If Tesla loses this, I expect it to retest this blue trend line at 238. We might see a little downside, very sideways price action tomorrow because of Nvidia alone and also because of the current technicals. But just to be safe, we also want to be watching to see what the news says about Tesla. That's another big factor. For now, it's looking a little bit more bearish. We're seeing it selling off during the after hours. So there's going to be a risk of some downside, and Nvidia could be the thing that started this trend. On top of that, let me look at SPY real quick. I think SPY is due for some downside. It's very probable, at least, because there are two things worth mentioning. Actually, I would say three things I want to talk about. So the first thing is you could argue that we have like a double top like formation right here relative to the high. We approached the key resistance between 455 and 457, and so far we've been rejecting off of it. And we got a somewhat red day, very indecisive doji. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more selling tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be super aggressive unless we get some more bad news. But here's how the chart's looking. So what you can interpret here is we had this blue trend line. You guys see the blue line right here? Right? This was our support. This was support historically for SPY. What happened was we broke out. We got rejected off 455. We touched it, tried to bounce a little bit, came down to about 452. Then we got a back test. We got a little back test today when this thing ripped up and we failed to break above this. We failed to get back into like 454 or the higher areas, and we ended up rejecting and coming back down. That's a bearish signal. Not to mention the fact that I think we had an intraday double top that formed on the 5 minutes time frame. So with that being said, I mean, this is suggesting there might be some downside coming. We might see this thing retrace towards 452, then start shopping for a bit. And there could be more downside later as we approach 450. I think Nvidia is the first catalyst that could give the bears a bit of an edge. And I think that this is going to be a very healthy pullback, not necessarily a crash, before we see more upside for December or like maybe later into December. I wanted to also call out on SPX just as a reminder. When you go to the daily charts, we have this historical trend line right here. It's a little hard to see. I might switch over to the weekly. I think the weekly is going to be a little bit better. But for some reason, my trend line keeps getting adjusted. I think I got a little bit adjusted. Doesn't really matter. So look at this. You guys can see we have this resistance, the white trend line, resistance we rejected. We touched it again here, rejected. And then just yesterday, we touched it again. Are we going to break out of this or are we going to reject? As of right now, Nvidia's earnings is suggesting we might get a rejection here. That is one catalyst, and that seems very probable in my honest opinion. Moving forward, I'm going to go back to Aapl stock. Then I'm going to talk about the QQQ before I end the video. For Aapl, this is looking very interesting. We got this rejection right here. We made our way back up towards our trend line. I'm going to delete this. We don't really need to pay too much attention to that now. This yellow trend line, you guys can see the slanted yellow trend line is going to be our resistance. So far, Aapl has not made its way back up. and it's actually very flat in the after hours. Let me just check what it's looking like in the after hours. Very, very flat, if anything, not really doing a whole lot. And I think that what does concern me, however, is the fact that we have a bearish divergence. We have a quadruple bearish divergence on Aapl. So I don't know if there's going to be some kind of bad piece of news or something's going to happen. But with this quadruple bearish divergence, the chart's looking a bit more bearish to me. And I think that we're going to see Aapl retrace. Let's see if this thing loses 190 or closes below that tomorrow. That's going to be another bearish signal. Or it might be delayed depending on if we hold above it for now. But eventually, I think we're going to see some downside. I think that this imbalance is going to act as our next magnets towards 189.5. And I think that Apple's going to be coming back down. You could also argue that this kind of looks like a head and shoulders, maybe not the cleanest looking one, but we have like a left shoulder here, the head, maybe our right shoulder is about to form before it starts dropping lower. Could be more downside. So in my opinion, this chart looks like it might pop and start dropping. We could see 189.5, if not 189 on Aapl, and there's going to be a risk of that. That being said, the QQQ is going to be the last one for the video. QQQ, in my opinion, is looking a little bit more bearish. You could see this thing rejected quite hard today. Got a back test from this area. I didn't really draw out this trend line. I could have drawn this out, but you could draw out a trend line like this. You could see that we had this support that was going on right here. Now it's acting as this resistance. So just like this, previous support became resistance. We rejected off this trend line. Now we're coming back down just like SPY. We have a very similar rejection. And to add on to this, I just want to call out that Nvidia is going to impact the QQQ quite a bit, especially as it sinks. And to add on to that, the 4-hour time frame is showing a double bearish divergence. There's also a triple on the MACD. Now, these bearish divergences don't always play out. I want to warn you about that. They don't always guarantee that the market's going to sink, but the majority of the time they tend to be correct. Most of the time they are right. On top of that, we already have a bearish catalyst that could lead to more selling, and that's Nvidia that's starting it off. And there could be more coming soon. So that's very important, guys. Wanted to just mention this. We're starting to see crypto seeing some selling as well. If you're looking at Bitcoin, that's all I wanted to say for this video. I'm not going to talk about anything else because I want to make this video quick. I want to release this as fast as possible. And that's because I started very late. So I will be talking more about other tickers later on in my future videos. But just for this one, I'm going to end from here because the time is very limited. And I was waiting for so long for Nvidia's earnings call to end. All right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. I will most likely not be available during the pre-market session, but I should be around during the afternoon. I should be back later on tomorrow, so I'll see you guys then. And until then, take care. Enjoy the last trading day before Thanksgiving weekend. Take care, and just know that there's going to be a risk of downside going into tomorrow. So just be very, very careful when it comes to market open, and I'll talk more later on when the time comes. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.